This is the story of a woman in England who wanted writing as a hobby. At the young age of 6, she wrote her first story. She read it to her mother and her mother liked it and encouraged her to write more. She is shy and unfriendly, she lives in a fantasy world. But the story of her life will greatly enlighten your mind about the battle of life. At the age of 15, her grandmother, who was very close to her, died. These were not the only misfortunes in life she experienced. Her mother became ill, and as the days went by it got worse until she passed away. Her life went on, and one day, as she was reading a newspaper, she saw an advertisement for a job as an English teacher in Portugal. She took the opportunity and she went to Portugal to start a new beginning. And then she met a journalist on television. They soon started having more time together. And a year later they got married, and soon she gave birth. But again the color of her life darkened, that she was a victim of domestic abuse. Until her husband evicted her from the house. With her newborn daughter, she left Portugal and moved to Edinburgh. She has no job and forced to rely on state benefits while caring for her daughter alone. This period of her life was very dark. In her poverty, her friends once helped her pay the rent on the house. She barely eats just to give her daughter more food. Because of these events, she considered herself a complete failure and believed that it will never end. She experienced a deep depression. She lost hope, and she even tried to commit suicide at one point in her life. But she remembered her daughter and went on. Eventually, she decided to continue her career of writing fantasy novels. She forgets about problems while sitting at her desk. And she was able to begin to write more. Even if she can't really afford the food. She often goes to cafes to write for her book while her daughter is asleep. She just ordered a cup of coffee during her writing sessions so that somehow its owner wouldn't let her go. In this way, she completes the first 3 chapters of her novel. She sent her story to a publisher, but unfortunately, she was quickly rejected. She also sent it to other publishers, but she was again rejected. Her mailbox was filled with rejection letters after her story was sent to 12 different publishers. Then she began to lose confidence in her book. Finally, one day, the editor of a publishing company sat down to read her story. Fortunately, her 8-year-old daughter was also there to read. The girl really liked the chapter openings. As a result, the editor ended up reading the complete story. The publisher agreed to publish her book, but she was also advised to look for a full-time job. And explained that she is not going to be rich in writing fantasy stories for children. In June 1997, at the age of 31, her first novel Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was published with an initial print run of 1,000 copies. When the first buyers read her first novel, the demand for her books rose rapidly. Soon, Joanne Rowling, or better known as J.K. Rowling, from being unemployed, depressed, single mom living off state benefits, has been named one of the best-selling author of all time. Her premier book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is one of the best-selling books written to date. The 7-book series has sold more than 450 million copies worldwide. The film franchise based on her books registered $7.7 billion in box office revenue. In 2004, Forbes magazine named J.K. Rowling as the first person to become a billionaire by writing books. She was not successful overnight. She has to face misfortunes and rejections while caring for her daughter as a single parent and battling depression. All those failures were leads her to become stronger and finish her first fantasy novel. Despite all her wealth and fame, she did not forget the suffering and pain she had experienced. Much of her wealth has already donated to charity. She chose to pay the highest tax rate in England, as she had long lived from receiving state benefits. J.K. Rowling's life has shown that those who work hard are blessed. From her life, we learn that if you have a dream and if you continue to receive rejections, you have to keep going to reach it. To have many failures is not the end of our lives and dreams. It is impossible to live without being failed with something, unless you live avoiding the pains you have to go through to succeed. Thank you so much for watching and for your continued support.